I am the spiritual person, a leader, an interfaith minister, a quester. I'm a creative, and I'm also a leadership presentation coach. And at the heart of all of those journeys is know thyself. Know thyself. Welcome to Women We Should Know with international speaker, mindset reset mentor, author, and your host, Leslie Michaels. With audacious honesty and candor, the Women We Should Know podcast presents the wisdom and life-empowering insights of women who are the embodiments of innovation and social evolution. Please join Leslie as she shares potent conversations that will inspire your personal and professional evolutions. Welcome back to Women We Should Know. I am always so delighted to be able to be with you for these conversations and to bring the amazing women that I get to speak with to you. Women who are challenging the status quo by refusing to live in other people's boxes. Women who are coloring outside of the lines. These are women who are creating new definitions to old issues. These are women who are creating new definitions to bypass walls and ceilings that have kept us restricted. And they are women who are very specifically and very clearly committed to uplifting other women, to taking women along with them, because they understand that when we come together as a collective, we are a powerful force to be reckoned with. And we are a powerful force that wants only good for every human being. So it is always a delight and a pleasure to be with you and bring these voices with me. Today, I have the amazing Sandra Bargman. She's a creative soul, an intuitive communicator, an energetic servant. Sandra holds a BFA from Carnegie Mellon University in drama, music, and has enjoyed a 35-plus-year career as a professional actor, director, teacher, and presentation coach. She's performed on the stages of Broadway, national tours, off-Broadway, and continues to work in the industry. And I know she has this one interesting story about being on stage with the amazing Eartha Kitt. Maybe she'll share that with us. In 2007, she was ordained as an interspiritual minister and holds an advanced certification from One Spirit Interfaith Seminary in spiritual counseling. She is unaffiliated with any single religious tradition, and she has helped clients of all faiths and all traditions, including no faith and no tradition, in pursuing deeper understanding of their personal quest to know thyself. We know those words, don't we? Mm-hmm. Sandra helps clients actively seek out the edges and boundaries of accepted beliefs, assumptions, and expected challenges. Unexpected challenges. Well, expected or unexpected. She goes to both. Challenge is a challenge. A challenge is a challenge. And together, she and the client discover ways to think outside the box. See, this is where we started. Break down those boxes. She helps them to cultivate courage and create a new sense of possibility. She helps others understand and accept the inevitability of change. The biggest edge. We are going to talk about the psychological and neurological effects of change and how she is working to help people overcome this. In 2014, she started her own company, Sacred Stages LLC, and this is dedicated to encouraging everyone to discover the timeless, universal truths of spirit, the sacred, and the divine through the venue of live theater, music, workshops, and ritual design. Her one-woman show, The Edge of Every Day, garnered a Broadway World Award nomination. I have to say that slow so I don't trip on it. The live CD recording can be found on Amazon and CD Baby. Now, women, don't worry about all that. You know I'm going to do for you what I always do for you. I love doing that for you. I'm going to put all this in the program notes so that if you're driving, pay attention. You can write this down later. If you're jogging, don't worry about it. You can come back and get it later. And in the meantime, I am most pleased and excited to introduce you and welcome Sandra Bargman.
Oh, hello, Leslie.
How are you, my dear?
I am doing very well and excited to be here in conversation with glorious you.
Thank you. We'll have some fun. Tell us about Eartha Kitt.
Oh, well, I mean, she's everything you think she's going to be. I got to get that in. She was fantastic, very beloved by the cast. She's a itty bitty little thing and she kept her girlish figure and, she was in great shape. And when I say in great shape, I don't just mean in looks, I mean in actuality. She could really move and was very flexible and still very youthful. And she was just fun. She was just,
I take from that she hadn't read too much of her own publicity, that she was real, that she was present with all of you and helped all of you.
Well, I think there was an edge to that. I mean, I think, she had so much to work through and to overcome, and she was such a creation. And sometimes that shone through a little, that it felt a little like she wasn't real. And that she was being the creation of Eartha Kitt. But she would come out of that too. And, that's to be expected. Come on, she's a major celebrity. She's had this 9 lives of a career. And,
right.
So of course that I rest assured that there would have been a bit of that. But it was never, it was never off-putting or cruel or anything like that. It just was what it was,
And the reason I bring her up, other than the fact that it had to be very great fun to be able to work with her, is she was truly a change maker. She broke boundaries for women. She broke boundaries very specifically for Black women.
Indeed.
And she stands as a beautiful image to all of us that we can step outside of whatever parameters were bestowed upon us.
Yeah, she certainly modeled that very well.
Which is the main reason I bring her up, because she is the kind of woman we love here at Women We Should Know.
Indeed. And her daughter, Kit, who's not a performer, but is carrying on her legacy, keeping her legacy alive and teaching that as well. And I think she has a new book out as well. Yeah, you might be maybe she'll be a guest.
Maybe she'll be a guest on your podcast and mine, because Sandra also has a podcast. It's called, guess what? The Edge of Every Day. Of course it's called The Edge of Every Day.
Everything in life is called The Edge of Every Day now.
Everything in Sandra's world is called The Edge of Every Day. But yes, so her daughter's carrying on her legacy, and that's a beautiful thing.
Truly, truly, truly.
Why the edge?
It all started one afternoon when I was driving with my husband, and I asked him if we owned a bar or a restaurant, because we were driving by a skeleton of a bar and restaurant in the Catskill Mountains where we own a home. And I said, what? It was just one of those random Sunday afternoon strange little questions that you just throw out. And I said, what would you name it? And he thought, and I said, I would call it The Edge. And he said, he launched into this, I would call it The Edge Effect. And I said, well, why is that? And he said, well, that's actually a scientific term. He is a scientist by training. And
Yes.
he went on to tell me that the edge effect is when two different ecosystems come together. For instance, a forest and a field. And it was right at that edge, that boundary, where we find the most creativity and chaos and diversity. And I just thought, oh, that's perfect. And I was just beginning to think about creating a one woman show in the cabaret world in New York City. And I thought, well, that's a perfect concept to explore because that's like life.
Hmm.
That's where ideas come together like that, and there's this great explosion and creativity and chaos. And so I really started to think about that in terms of how would I talk about that, because my idea for my one woman show is as lovely as the cabaret world is. I'm certainly not. I don't want to do a one woman show where I sing the American songbook. That's just not the thing I wanted to create. I wanted it to be um, educational as well as entertainment, and as I say, edutainment. And so I just explored that, and how do I craft a show that explores that and shares my understanding of the edge. And it was also what was going on in my life personally as well. I
Hmm.
was really seeing at play internally these paradoxes and polarities that were expressing, things that I said that on the one hand I believe this, and on the other hand this also lived in me, these contradictions, seeming contradictions. And of course we all know that we're complex, but it was very utmost in my understanding at that time. And I was also
Right.
noticing it out in the world.
Right.
The polarities politically were just, I was really tuning into how that had just exploded. And at least
Hmm.
to me, it probably had exploded a bit prior to that, but I was really tuned into it. So
Hmm.
that's where it all came from.
And then you add into that, or layer into that, let's say, I like layer better,
Hmm.
um, all of um, your work with climate change. And that's a whole different level of edge.
Well, certainly, I had not done when I started. I didn't do the climate reality leadership training until 2017, but I certainly explored, the understanding in the show, and I also talked about openly in the show my spiritual practices, which include, the Native American wisdom and the understand the sacredness of Mother Earth and the
Yes.
sacredness of animals and the teaching and wisdom that they share. And
Right.
so, yes, it was indeed woven into it.
Yes. Well, you didn't become a climate reality specialist till 2017, but you had a stint living out in a more rural flannel shirt, compostable toilet kind of environment earlier in life.
Yes, I did. Yes, the city girl with the big hair and the big shoes and the big earrings did indeed find herself on a 3,000-acre nature preserve, um, and living with her then boyfriend, now husband, a scientist who was the assistant executive director of this biological research station. And we did, in fact, live, and I had moved to California out of New York City. I was having, one of my beefs with New York City at the time, and ran out to,
As New Yorkers tend to do.
as New Yorkers do,
Yeah.
and certainly in the business of show. And you know what? I just got to change things up. I'm going to go out to Los Angeles. My friends some of them were becoming um, uh, sitcom stars and this and that. And I thought, okay, now's the perfect time to go out. And my sister was going through a challenging time, so I went out there. Knew very quickly it was not the place for me. It was not, which is not to disparage Los Angeles. It's just not my vibe. And
No, it's not.
it and but I had let go of my apartment in New York City. So I called my
Oh,
boyfriend and said, "Listen, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna drive across in my cute little car that I first car I ever owned. I was just so excited about it. going to drive across country and I'm going to move in with you on the nature preserve. And I'm going to explore what's available to me there. I'm going to check out regional theater, and and when I start to pull my hair out and need to go back to New York City, we will explore that and cross that bridge when we get to it. But to your thing about Earth, talk about composting. I remember my mother-in-law got me bean boots. My first birthday, I was on the hike preserve.
Got you what?
Bean boots, pull-on bean boots.
I
And
don't know what that is.
well, they're LL Bean. It's like
Oh, okay, yes.
every nature lover's favorite store. I was like, oh, mortified. I do not wear flannel, and I will not wear these boots. It is not happening for me. I don't care where I live, and of course, they turned out to be one of my most favorite things. But I had to play the New York girl, But I had great regional theater experience. I started my very lucrative voiceover career there. I wrote 2 children's musicals about environmental issues, one of them being BB Garbage and Our All New Recycling Review, that taught about recycling, which was new on the scene then. Well, not new, but people were a little unclear about it, and so we were looking for a way to begin to teach the kids who would bring it home. And then 3 years later, I was pulling out all my hair and I went back to New York City. But I always have maintained this edge, urban and country life.
Absolutely. And I love the story about calling the boyfriend saying, by the way, I'm coming to live with you.
I know, right? I'm going to move in. And yes, we did. You mentioned composting toilet. We did indeed have a composting toilet, which I promptly named The Throne.
The Throne.
And yes, the Queen theme has always been there.
The Queen. I love that.
Yes.
Let's take that forward. You wrote these children's plays. I'd still like to know where those are. We could still have those cycling about. And went back into the city. And of course, we know where you're going. You're moving towards that moment of realizing the edge. What were the significant touchstone moments that led you to have the realizations that were able to come after you had that drive with your husband and discussed what your bar would be named?
Well, I think, what has driven me really my whole life, and it has cropped up and revealed itself to me throughout, is my edge walking. I am an edge walker of many communities, and I don't find myself desiring to be in the center of any of them. So, from the time I was a little kid and all through school, I did a million things. I was a part of the drama club. I sang in all the choirs. I played violin, I played sports, and I was a part of all of these and went in and out of these communities. Even when I was in college, I went to a very demanding conservatory in Carnegie Mellon, and I had friends outside of the department. I was not somebody that, and in all honesty, being around only actors all the time, I was not turned on by that. I was very interested in a variety of things, my spiritual life, a science, all different things. So, fast forward, and it's no different. That, part of the wanting to move out of New York City was I need to grow.
Right.
And I need to explore some new edges. And I pretended that it was going to Los Angeles, but it was, I needed to get to nature. I
Right.
needed to explore that priestess side of me, and that whole energy came to the fore. Hey, I had a fantastic little regional. I was a big fish in a small pond, and it was fantastic for those 3 little years. And then, boom, time to grow. And my spiritual yearnings through all of that just kept driving me and wanting to be in that community, but not wanting to be in that community full time.
Right.
Everyone's always telling people, find a lane, find your lane, find your lane. And
Oh,
no, that I do not want one lane. I have 3 lanes. I have a friend of mine, girlfriend of mine, gorgeous Broadway actress, fantastic voice. She said, "You're like a walking Venn diagram." And I promptly, when she said that, I screamed and I went, "I'm going to Canva and I'm going to create that right now. Create that Venn diagram." But it's true. And I am the spiritual person, a leader, an interfaith minister, a quester. I'm a creative, and I'm also a leadership presentation coach. And at the heart of all of those journeys is know thyself. That ancient
absolutely.
Greek maxim, know thyself.
Absolutely. And that's what so many women at this point are being called to do. I
Yeah,
believe COVID was this great blessing that so many of us didn't know we needed, and so many
amen to
are
that.
still struggling against recognizing, but it did put women, far more than men, in a position of having an opportunity. Some claimed it, some didn't, some are still on the fence. An opportunity to know more of ourselves. And that is the prevailing conversation that I find myself having on this podcast
Mm,
or at cafes.
amen. Truly.
Because women have, don't you find, women have been so simultaneously compartmentalized, but then also restrained.
Indeed.
And now, as the
And
body
then when it, and
fall down,
also when it's
all these
needed.
compartments are coming back to their awareness, and women are claiming more of themselves.
Indeed. Well, and I'm also finding it, they've been compartmentalized, but then when it's necessary from the patriarchy for them not to be compartmentalized, then there's a demand to step out of that, but
Yes,
only in service to this, not in service to yourself.
yourself. That's right. Not ever in service to yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah. So some of
absolutely.
us who buck the system a little bit early,
Totally. Well,
I
and
find
it's
it
interesting.
celebratory for the to see so many other women. They're floundering a little bit. Of course, they're floundering a little bit. They haven't been in this particular pond before.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with
Celebrating for
floundering.
them. That's what I'm saying. There's
Yeah, that's part of the
uh,
birthing process. That's part of the chaos.
it's part of the joy when you get to a place where you get on the shore and you look back and you say, I did that.
I totally did that.
I totally did that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I got myself out of the water onto the land.
Absolutely. Well, and to be honest, some of the creation of the edge of every day was a little bit about me stepping out of my compartmentalization. And I created that as my own. I structured the show as a ritual because I teach ritual, I do ritual, I've studied ritual, and I decided that, it would be I could create the show at a variety of levels for people to plug into. If they
Right.
just want the entertainment and the great music, fine. If they want this level, fine. If they want to really experience this as a ritual, fantastic. All of
Right.
those invitations are there.
Right.
But the creation of it and the intention of the edge, and for me personally to plug into that, was my own ritual and my
Yes.
own realization of,
Yes.
oh, you think you're so fiercely independent and
Mm-hmm.
you're so boundary pushing.
Uh,
Well, guess what? You need to start to push some new boundaries yourself
right.
there, missy. Get
That's
on
right.
with it. And it
That's
was
right.
so liberating.
I love that you shared that. because women, because they're taught to by the advertisers, by society, they look at other women and they say, oh, but look at her. She's an interfaith minister. She's an actress. She's a writer, or she's a podcaster, or she's a podcaster. She's a writer. She's out there coaching people around the world. They do not give themselves permission to know we didn't come out of the womb and jump into the podcast chair.
Yes, I came out of the womb perfect.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I know. That's why we're here.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what's interesting and what is affirming and what I'd like to share at this moment that I know you will agree with for all of our listeners. Every one of those moments of being kicked through the fences, knocked in the head, tripping over our own feet, I wouldn't trade any of them now.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it really is, COVID really was a great polisher. It was such a great polisher.
Great word for that. Yeah.
I was not somebody who felt liberated at first from COVID. I had a lot of things, a lot of rugs yanked out from underneath me. I had to do a little wallowing and bitching. But I continued also to have one foot in the camp of, I will figure this out. I must figure this out. I know that this because all challenges are opportunities. If I'm going to walk my talk, I'm going to do this. And I must do this. I'm being called forward into this. And it's how I discovered doing my podcast, is that if you have decided that the edge of everyday is really, I mean, sincerely, all jokes aside, it is my platform. It is the way that I walk in the world, and it's the way that I understand the world. Yes, to see those, to understand the complexities and to lift out of them and to acknowledge them. Yes. And so, I discovered podcasts, thank you, in COVID. And I met somebody who produced them and was a guest on their podcast, talkradio.nyc, and a couple of other hosts there. And he said, you should be you're a natural at this. You should do this. And I said, we need another podcaster, like we need a freaking hole in the head. And my friends you included, gave me advice that I would have given. Mm-hmm. What you bring to the table is who is going to listen. They're going to decide. And what you have to say is important, and the way that you engage in conversation is needed. And whoever needs you will find you. And that's that. And it doesn't matter. Like in all things, there's always room for more. Like uplifting, there's not the competition. And it wasn't really even about competition. I think it was really more about, this is the line. Are you going to step out in the world in a bigger way, Sandra? And that was really
we can make
that I was moving through. I was hiding behind, we don't need any more podcasters.
That's right.
And bang. Right. So I did it. And I'll tell you what, I loved it. And then after the first of this year, I was like, and I'm getting full body chills as I share this. These courageous conversations are what is needed at this crossroads in humanity. Yes. Oh my, and boom, there's, you don't have to do another production of Mamma Mia to feel fulfilled. Quite frankly, as much fun as that was, and as much as you love ABBA music, this is what you need to be focusing on now. And I got it big time.
That's brilliant. That is brilliant. Speaking of edges on your whole platform, there's a whole other character here present with us in this podcast today.
Yes, there is. And it goes hand in hand with the fierce conversations, because the picture that you are seeing behind me is the picture, and I'm going to let you see All of
Gorgeous.
it.
Yes.
Isn't it great? This is the Plum. The Plum at Trevor Hollow House. And it is my converted garage that we did during COVID. We turned it into a quintessential salon space. And for those of you who don't have heard the word salon, but maybe don't know just quick history of salons, they started in the 17th century, really took hold in the 18th century in Europe, first in Italy and then across Europe, and then it moved around. And it's having a resurgence. But the thought process was that a female host was in charge of these, and people would come into people's home, would get invitations to people's homes to have fierce conversations and debates and to learn about the issues of their time. And there could be performances included in this night,
Mm-hmm.
and poetry and literature. And they would bring in experts to share information, but they would invite people from a variety of backgrounds. And you had to leave your little title at the door
At the
because there
door.
was no hierarchy. People were considered equals in these salon spaces.
Yes.
And it's just fantastic. And it's having a bit, the culture is having a bit of a resurgence, which I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know. But being an edge walker, I'm leading the way. I'm pushing the boundaries. So this is a space that I created on my property to have these kinds of conversations. And that I can have house concerts. I can have poetry readings. I can do, because I'm an interfaith minister and legal clergy, I can do small weddings here, elegant elopements. People can have meetings here. It's a place to call people into community. And that's another polishing that we had in COVID, was
Mm-hmm.
this new calling towards connection and community.
Yes. Yeah. And true community,
Yes.
not the girlfriend five
Tribe.
happy hour,
Right. Not
but
tribe.
authentic community where you come and have real conversations that are sometimes challenging,
Indeed.
and you stay in the room and you sit down over and over again, maybe many times during that conversation. You set down your ego, you set down your defensiveness, and everyone comes out of that room as more.
Indeed.
Absolutely. What, Sandra, is that great big shiny brass ring that is still standing out in front of you,
Mm.
that has been there for a long time, and every time you get close, you move the goalpost?
Yeah, that would be my play in a book. Yeah. Yeah. That would be that. I have a play that I'm writing, and the main character is Lilith, the the first female, as is described in the Bible, the Torah, the first book, and the woman who was cast out of Eden so that Eve could be created, and Eve, from the rib of Adam. So I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of all of that, but suffice it to say that she
That
is a
is another
great.
conversation.
Yeah,
I want you to come
exactly.
back for it, but we can't
Oh,
do
excellent.
that.
Yes, I would love that. But yeah, so she is a fantastic space holder energetically, for of course, for women. And I certainly don't want to focus only on women's anger, but I would be remiss if I did not include that. I mean, because again,
Right.
what are we? Complex people, which I just have a rap about in The Edge of Every Day. So yes, we're allowed to be angry and all of those things, as well as nurturers and loving, etc., etc. So she just felt like a great character, and I'm playing with keeping artificial intelligence in it, and that she embodies some women throughout history. Um, so yeah, it's an exploration of, and it's also Mother Earth is a character in it. So that it's really a full exploration of all things feminine and the rise of the feminine and our time right now. So that's certainly one thing, where one project. And the other project is my own book, which is, of course, based on The Edge of Every Day. And it will be, I have an outline created, and I'm scheduled to start work on it in June, because I have a couple of projects that require a bit too much attention. And I'm a newer writer. I'm not as disciplined yet as I would like to be. So I've decided that that's okay for right now, that I will start that in June. Um, but it's going to be part memoir,
Mm-hmm.
part ritual,
Mm-hmm.
and part spiritual handbook. Things that
Oh,
little lessons I've learned along the way, ways of thinking, exploring things, just weaving understandings from traditions, understandings that I've discovered from experience that have helped me
mm-hmm.
through my challenges, to explore my rough edges, to push my boundaries. Weave that all into
Mm-hmm.
one book.
Wonderful. And you have had a little bit of practice recently.
Just a bit.
Just,
Just a little bit.
just a little bit. What did you not get to share with our visitors today that is just itching to be told?
Oh, good grief, Leslie, you've stumped me. What's the
Let's mark the date book.
itching to be I dropped more COVID weight. Yes, stress eating and depression, COVID depression weight, and with perfect storm with menopause. Um, it's not itching to be told, but I think that there's importance, as I allow this to arise within me, is to think about community again, to visit that understanding. I have a big birthday coming up this month, and
Mhm.
I decided that I wanted to have a big party in New York City and invite friends. And then I said, no, I don't think I want to do that. I think I want to invite people I don't know in my community into the Plum and have it sort of be an open house and just get to know people. And of course, I invited friends from up here as well. But I have struggled because I'm an edge walker, because I don't want to just be with, I'm not a tribe person. I'm a loner by nature. I like to stay on the move. I like to push boundaries and create bridges, but I don't like to be in the center of anything. I like hybrids, and that's how I think, and that's how I move in the world. So I think that that has contributed to me feeling like I didn't really have community.
Mm.
Like all of my life, I have lots of friends, but they're around the globe, and they're in this
Mhm.
thing and they're in that thing, and they don't necessarily, or my perception, don't understand this portion of my life, blah, blah, blah. Um, and so there's been a sense of loneliness that comes with
Mhm.
that. And I think anyone that's pushing boundaries and pushing edges and on that kind of quest understands that spirit of loneliness that can come to visit. Um,
Yes.
but I have, when when I did The Edge of Every Day in New York City, my whole thing was, and sacred stages, it's under the umbrella of my company, and I'm going to build community. And all I built was a fan base, which is lovely, but that's not the same thing.
It is not the same thing. And it's so interesting to see that happen and then stand back and say, wait a minute, that's not
Right.
what I meant.
And that's not
No, no,
feeding
not
me
what I meant.
truly. So I had to go through this sense of, well, maybe I just suck at this, and maybe I don't really want this. I
Mm-hmm.
say that I want it, but maybe I
Right,
don't. But
right.
again, I think it's fine for me personally to walk that edge. And if I
Mm-hmm.
can get comfortable with, it's not either or. It's the embrace of both. Yes, you want community, and sometimes you don't. And that's okay. But to have had this urge to engage with the Plum, with the podcast in a different sort of way with community
Mhm.
is exciting to me.
Well, and having not had that kind of community prior, and now deciding about to build community, it's you, I, all these women who are in this position are not restricted by ideas of limitation based on what community was pre-COVID. It's like
Oh, yeah.
entirely different lifetimes, pre-COVID, post-COVID.
Oh, yeah. The new normal. The new normal.
And we're
I can't wait
creating
for
it
things
as
to
we
get
go.
normal. Wait,
Oh,
what's normal? Wait, you think it's going to be that? No.
you really believe that?
Yeah, no, that's not
No,
coming
I
back.
get, no.
And quite frankly, thank goodness.
Yeah. Okay, we could go on and on and on, as we often do. We're
Yes.
not doing a podcast, but this is a podcast. And I'm getting to share your lovely self and your brilliant insights and your brilliant mind with all of the listeners of Women We Should Know. So thanks for being here, my girlfriend.
Oh,
And
thank you.
women, don't forget now, you don't need to write it down while you're driving. Don't need to write it down while you're jogging, because I'm going to have all of Sandra's social media links. I'm going to have whatever contact information she wants to give you so that you can reach out and be in continued conversation with her. And so thank you again, Sandra, as we get ready to sign out today.
Thank you so, so much. Thank you for having me, Leslie. Thanks for listening in, everyone. And remember, you are always at the edge of the miraculous.
So I know all of you out there listening gained at least one or two nuggets to stick in your pocket and carry forward with you. Something you can pull out later in the day and say, oh, yes, I'm so glad I picked that up. I'm so glad I got that. Because that is the intent. Absolutely. I love coming here and having these conversations. It was the fact that I was having these great conversations that inspired me to want to share them with all of you. And so that's how I built a podcast. I didn't have any great desire to be a podcaster. I had a great desire to share these conversations with other women. And so as you go forward, I do trust that you got something wonderful from this. Be sure and subscribe if you are not already subscribed. Like and share this podcast with someone else who you know who would be touched by it. And as I get ready to leave you for another minute, I just want to remind you, you are wiser and stronger than you know.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We hope you received inspiration for expanding your own social innovation and influence. Help us inspire others by sharing this episode and leaving your comments over at lesliemichaels.com/podcast. For more tips, insights, and support in creating a fully audacious, professional, and personal lifestyle you love, visit our Women We Should Know community on Facebook.